This video started life as a first impression, with me giving my thoughts on the game after about 7 to 10 hours with it, because I saw so little coverage or hype for it. But after reading some pretty questionable reviews that lack both depth and detail, only to give a score that said more about the review and the reviewer, I decided to turn those 7 hours into around 50 to ensure I felt confident calling this video a review. And then I decided to put another 60 hours into it to be one of only 4 people in the world to get the platinum. So I feel really comfortable asking the question, should you buy NBA The Run? And unfortunately, for the first time, the answer is no, you shouldn't. And I don't feel good saying that because this series is supposed to find the fun. It's designed from the ground up to look at games through a positive lens and fundamentally believe that any game can be someone's favorite game. But at 7 hours, I was mostly bored. After 10, I wondered why I spent £30 on the game at all. And after 100 and getting the platinum trophy, I genuinely felt like this was one of the worst gaming experiences I've had in the last few years. NBA The Run looking and acting like a spiritual successor to NBA Street isn't a coincidence. It's by design and legacy. A lot of the team at Play by Play, the developers behind NBA The Run, worked on most, if not all, of the NBA Street series. And this is probably the perfect place to start because while the team's love for arcade sports can be felt throughout NBA The Run, that pedigree and drive for over-the-top gameplay or story isn't anywhere to be seen. Instead, The Run's single game mode is 3 vs 3 online-only games with a few different ways to play. Firstly, you've got knockout squads, which I believe is the developers' preferred way for people to engage and play the game, and it's what they had from the beginning when designing it. It sees you control just one player while everyone else controls their own. The other option is knockout solos, which has you controlling the entire team while your opponent does the same. And lastly, something that I didn't really see pop up in any other review was knockout friends, and it deserves a special mention. It's a private tournament for you and your friends, or as I found, just for yourself, because knockout friends is both the closest thing you can get to a single player experience and the only way to actually practice the game's mechanics, which highlights NBA The Run's first big issue. The game has zero tutorialization. Without that janky workaround of setting up a friendly tournament against AI bots, the best option the game gives you to learn its gameplay in a genre we've not seen in 20 years is shoot around. But this has two major flaws. Firstly, it's just you on the court, which means you can't actually practice skills or drills or dribbling or tricks or anything in between like you would do in a real game. Secondly, the game doesn't explain its mechanics. Not in the options, not in shoot around, not even explanations or examples next to the incredibly basic list of moves it does give you. So after 5 to 10 hours with the game, I quite literally couldn't explain to you how I hit certain shots with Luka, or why a max level dunker just misses a dunk when no one is around them for no rhyme or reason, or why a prime Steph Curry struggles with 1 3 compared to another 3. The problem isn't that these things happen. It would be ridiculous if every shot went in. It's that the game provides zero explanation why or how its mechanics work at all, so you're perpetually left wondering with questions and no way to find the actual answer. Now, even if you're someone who's okay learning organically over time or someone who doesn't care at all, you're still going to get hit with the same huge problem of pacing and load times. In any tournament you play, it's 4 matches. A match can last anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes, and on its own, that is great. Great arcadey fun for you and your friends. Pair that with blind team selection, randomized courts and rule sets that force game strategy, and advantages and cons against certain teams, and suddenly you start to see how the game is pretty close to developing that feeling of just one more game before bed. And then you add everything else. The bracket animation taking 35 seconds, animation picking the court and rules another 10 seconds, logo splash screen out of nowhere 2 seconds, the team sheet 6 seconds, in-game and court intro 19 seconds. Then, after you've finished your match, you've got play of the game, which is another 8 seconds, made worse by the fact it's not actually the play of the game, it's just the last play of the game. Then you've got post-game and scoreboard, which is 15 seconds, and back to that 35-second bracket animation until you're in the game again, experiencing the same loading issues. After it's all said and done, you spend about 35% of your time not in menus, but loading screens. So when I said I have over 100 hours in the game and the platinum trophy, please remember that 35-ish hours of that, maybe even 40, are spent in loading screens. Annoyingly, it's only after winning the tournament you get your first and only skippable cutscene. You're then presented with a non-skippable progression screen that reveals the third major flaw with NBA The Run, and arguably the reason I don't think the game will be around that long. Now, I want to start this section by saying, while I was personally going for the platinum trophy, this criticism and discussion of progression design isn't based on the fact it was one of the worst grinds I've experienced in any game in my life, but instead simply using it to highlight in contrast how bad it will be for you and casual players. Why is this important? Well, So much of the run and games like it are based around unlocks, gear, accessories, emotes, style, players, and jerseys. Now, one of the founding philosophies of NBA The Run was no microtransactions. And while that is true, the end result makes me wish there were microtransactions. The way The Run segments its store is based on levels. So every 5 to 10 levels you rank up from play, you unlock a new tier in the store to spend your credit, which you get after every match, win or lose. On the surface, without playing the game, this probably seems fine and a very, very player-friendly way of approaching customization and in-game items. But in reality, most players, yourself included, will never get their hands on a vast majority of the items, and that's because of this screen right here from just a few moments ago. This is after a tournament win, so 4 wins in a row, and this isn't a normal match either. It's an overly optimized lobby for one purpose: the platinum. Now, while I'm sure our reasons for wanting XP and credit will be entirely different, the fact remains that a perfect tournament gives you around 550 XP and 390 credits for 15 minutes, and that's with the loading times, remember. So only about 6 minutes of that was actual playing the game. When these manufactured conditions offer so little in terms of player progression, I think it's really easy to see just how punishing a typical game session for the average player would be. Despite the well-meaning intent of the store, prioritizing real game time over real money, NBA The Run manages to achieve the exact opposite. There's a bizarre irony to a store that rejects real money in favor of playtime, only to end up respecting your time even less. If we anchor 1,000 credit to the industry standard price of $6.99 for microtransactions, NBA The Run expects you to grind at a rate that sits just under minimum wage. By designing progression system this way, the developers might have removed what some deem as exploitation via microtransactions, but the solution is simply replacing your wallet with your clock. The end result is horrible for everyone. For the player, their only way to authentically engage with the game's content is either excruciatingly slow at best or practically impossible at worst, with it taking hours just to go from level 1 to level 2, and the later levels of 45 to 50 can take you anywhere from 6 to 10 hours just for one level. And need I remind you, this math is based on me winning every single game. If the developers want players to stick around and feel rewarded for their time, this system has to change and change quickly. Something as simple as a 2 or 3 times modifier would go a long way. By the time of recording this voiceover and script and everything else, this hasn't happened. But progression aside, what about the gameplay? I think the intention of The Run and its 3 versus 3 game mode is more than just paying homage to the past. I think the developers at Play-by-Play thought they'd found a gap in the market, one where they could take an adored genre by hardcore and casual fans alike and mirror the success of Rocket League, a game that's easy to play, easy to understand, but difficult to master. But the end result lacks any sort of depth that could result in mastery. But more often than not, you arbitrarily hit square to steal the ball, push players over because timing and positioning is kind of irrelevant, and the jankiness really plays a part in almost every play, and every player seemingly has the same handful of tricks, and doing said tricks is largely pointless to the overall gameplay. You genuinely are rewarded for simply playing it like an actual game of basketball than anything close to a street variant of the sport. If I didn't go for the platinum, I genuinely think I might have stopped playing at around 8 hours, and that's where the first impression came from. I think part of me didn't want to play the game anymore because there was nothing more to play. The gameplay refuses to fully embrace its ludicrous arcade origins and inspirations, and the end result is landing in a spot that's seemingly too safe and respectful of the league and its players, or at least that's what I think. You won't find much of those Tony Hawk-like score streaks and noises or UI pings, moments where the game slows down to add insult to injury to your opponents, opportunities to embarrass players and teams with an arsenal of tricks, shots, playstyle, and emotes. Instead, you get this weird middle ground that is part 2K and part arcade, and ultimately, it fails at both. There's just not that much depth to the game outside of what you get in the first couple of hours, but it's simply lacking in almost every respect. Some of the tweaks needed in NBA The Run go far beyond the limited and unexplained mechanics and are more related to overall game design. Right now, the game almost requires a big on every team, and that means every game you're probably playing against Wemby or some close approximation, which highlights a bigger problem. It's a little pointless picking players who aren't the best in their respective role. You don't have to work your way up through the ranks to unlock better players. You just get the likes of Wemby and Luka and Jokic, Steph and LeBron all from your first game. And this creates a strange balance issue because there's then never a reason to play or try anyone else. Maybe a sort of Valorant pick system where you pick your player after you're in the game and it's only one baller per player. This way you wouldn't keep seeing the same 9 players when there's actually a roster of 43. Or even players separated into 3 distinct roles like light, medium, and heavy, the way the FPS game The Finals does it. Right now it's a little all over the place, which can lead to imbalanced teams almost perpetually. And when it's taking 90 seconds to 3 minutes to then lose that game, get out to the menus, get into another game, that sort of compounds and the irritation grows with every passing game, especially when you want to just play and have a little bit of fun. And this goes back to what I said about the game being too respectful of the players and the league, and maybe even the fans. And this emphasizes the poor progression design once again. In reality, you should start the game with the likes of Josh Giddey, Cooper Flag, and Moran, with every rank giving you an extra couple of players to pick between. Instead, the game gives you almost every baller from the start, and because the game is 3 versus 3 online, unless you want to voluntarily handicap yourself, there's no reason to play anyone but the best. It's strange to me how authentic sports games have no issue putting a literal number next to a player, but an arcade game designed from the ground up to be kind of wacky can't simply broadly bucket players into different categories and say, yeah, Josh Giddey isn't quite Steph Curry. Maybe you get him at a different level. Outside of the incredible art direction, there's just not that much going for the game over the long term. It's a near impossible recommendation in its current iteration, and I just don't know if it's going to stick around that long to find other iterations. With the loading times taking up 35% of my playtime, or little things like the UI design that forgot there was this phenomenal creative direction to work from, or the UX design that takes you on a world tour of the menus for no reason at times, or the stacked roster where basically 10 players are viable, everyone else is just you play them now and again for the fun of the game. I wanted to love NBA The Run more than I did, really, truly. I bought the special edition of the game day one. I probably ended my streak with this game in the top 1% of players in terms of hours played. And this is where I'm incredibly conflicted because I know low sales will doom this game and by extension this genre. This video, or those like it, will be used as a stick to beat any developer that wants to give us more of this genre. But right now, a miss is a miss, and that kind of sucks.